And I believe those two things affect liberty and prosperity of the American people. So our campaign is focused on those two things.
Sure. Representative Tipton has recently held several field hearings focusing on regulation. He's spoken out quite consistently against overburdensome federal regulations, fought against it. So, and you support that, right?
Yeah.
For what you said. So again, just to clarify, were he to speak out against the Federal Reserve System?
It's more than speaking out against, because that's rhetoric. It's easy to talk about all of the things that are wrong. That's the easy part. I could do that all day long. Now we need people to actually do something. And that's where the question goes, well, you need other people to work with. Well, everything is changing and something has got to give. At some point, something's got to give. We have got to stop talking about it. Yes, that's great that he's speaking out against regulations. That's great. But what is he doing right now to stop it? To stop federal agencies from intruding upon the American people and public rights.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to get an argument about it.
Right.
But he has sponsored and co-sponsored several bits of legislation to repeal a lot of those regulations. But let's get back to the Federal Reserve. You are opposed then to any kind of legislation or policy that would correct monetary policy. For instance, Milton Friedman often spoke of, in fact, he's the creator of monetary, the monetary school. Are you in opposition to what Milton Friedman taught about the monetary system and how rule of law should apply to the Federal Reserve in terms of proper monetary policy, tight money, that kind of thing?
I am only mildly familiar with what you're talking about with Friedman, and so I can't really speak to that specifically. The Federal Reserve System is, as you know, over 12 private banks. It's not transparent to Congress, and it's not transparent to the American people. It has large amounts of money that are being printed, which are not even printed, they just add zeros behind, which are starting to cause reverberations in our own economy, and since the world is a global economy, it's tied to everyone. We are all starting to feel the implications of this. To correct this problem, the Federal Reserve should be either completely transparent, so that we know where the money is going, and it's really Congress. That's what a role of Congress that they should have right now. And I believe that at this point, if the Federal Reserve was completely transparent, that there would be trials for treason for people who have worked against the American people and bankrupted them. Now, and so I'm not sure about there's policies that can be enacted and legislation that can be enacted, and that's a process of getting to it. At the end of the day, that system is unsustainable, and we need to do something as people about it. I do not know the exact way or process that it's going to be cured at this stage in the game. All I know is that we need to outwardly speak out against it and get more and more people to at least understand basic economics. Our campaign is not a normal campaign. I'm not just running to go to Washington, D.C. It's about empowering the people with information. The American people do not know that they are the check on government. It's up to us. We need to empower them with information. So many people do not have a basic grasp on economics, a basic grasp on the Bill of Rights. These are things that are very important to getting to that place where we can find a sustainable solution economically, including with something like the Federal Reserve.
The last short set of questions, are you okay on battery? And I'd like to later on in the process, maybe meet with you again and discuss a little bit these more.
That would be great, yeah. I learn every day, yeah.
But just very briefly on some of your other policy positions, defense and national security and war on terror. Very briefly, it's a huge topic, but what is your general philosophy?
You can't have a war on a concept. Several of the wars that we're in now are unconstitutional. We're out of money, and I do not believe, and we need to bring our men and women home. I think that we need a strong national defense, and I want, until we have something where it requires our American troops to go and fight for a specific cause with a specific goal and a specific deadline, we need to be protecting our own country and our own borders.
What would be some of those specific causes? What would be the criteria for setting those specific causes that dedicate American forces?
If there's when there's a threat to the American people, it's the job of the federal government to protect the American people. We have the technology right now to be able to pinpoint causes of these problems and use our technology to enforce policy or to stand up and do what's right to protect the American people. That does not mean we need to go into other countries and take, our troops into other countries and stay there and nation build. That's different. You can't protect the American people by going into other countries and building up other countries. The most pure way to create peace is with free trade, and we are very far away from that. But if you have free trade with other countries, that's what keeps nations peaceful with one another. Now, getting back to that is a long road. The tentacles are deep. There's a lot of other problems that go into that. But that at the end of the day, that's where I stand. I believe in a very strong national defense because that is one of the rules of the federal government. But what we're doing now is unsustainable, and we're out of money. And I do not believe that the innocent people should be killed in the name of instituting democracy. It's dangerous.
Do you view, and to what extent do you view states like North Korea and Iran as threats to national security? What should the federal government do about that?
Until I have more knowledge myself gathered from me as far as research, I can't speak to it as well as I would like. I believe that obviously we have our own military in these places, and I would hope that they are doing the right thing and would be able to advise someone like myself on what is actually going on. However, until I have that, I'm not going to say it because I don't feel comfortable until I research something more myself.
And I had roughly the same question on China. Do you view China as a strategic competitor of the United States? And should American Congress deal with China in terms of them as an economic competitor as well as a strategic competitor in the Pacific Rim?
I'm sure. I believe that economically they are a competitor, but at the same time we work together. And that's kind of just how it works as far as international relations. You're always going back and forth. I think that again we are so far away from having something called free trade that it skews any argument as to whether or how those relations work. And again, it's a global economy. We are so tied together. It's almost one and the same. And so I'm not sure if that answered. I don't.
No, this is just a quick overview. And on free trade is actually my next stop. There's been some presidential debates, particularly between Mitt Romney and Governor Huntsman, about the trade imbalance with China. Mitt Romney labeling China as a currency manipulator. Where do you fall as regarding free trade rates? How do you fall?
Right.
How should we deal with China in terms of trade?
Well, it's so deep and so tight. But if someone else is manipulating their currency and it's going to affect, that is affecting the free market because we are making assumptions about what they're doing with their currency, which then affects what we do with our currency. Now, if they're lying or if we're lying, that is going to cause imbalances in the marketplace. Now, how to deal with that? Well, ideally, you would have nations that are transparent, working within the paradigm of a free market. Ideally, that would be the solution for that. Whether or not that happens with countries is up to those own independent countries to decide. My hope would be that something like China that has an incredible amount of people and potential for growth, that we could work with them in our own country and build our own country to create more free trade amongst the two countries. But we'd have to unravel, I believe, a lot of the other bureaucracy, rules, regulations, taxes that are in place right now that are affecting that.
Moving on to immigration. There's, again, in the presidential debates are highlighting this, a lot of discrepancy among the candidates on immigration policy, how to deal with illegal immigrants, labeling them. How would you approach immigration policy?
I believe that legislation has already been passed that is put out for a fence on the border, and we just need to apportion the monies for that. I do believe that something like that. Now, at the same time of protecting the American people via that mechanism, we have got to streamline the process so people can migrate here legally. That is really important. That's a lot of the, that's a lot of the problem, is that there's people that want to do this legally, but we are holding them up from doing that. So we need to streamline that system, and I'm confident that we can find a way to do that. On a state level, I think that something like E-Verify or allowing for, putting in place mechanisms so that people are not encouraged and lose the incentive to hire people legally could work. At the end of the day, we need to figure out what's causing people to want to come here in the first place, and a lot of that revolves around the welfare state. And so, but the two biggest things for me are having a fence on the border that has already been passed, and we just need to apportion the money for it. And then secondly, streamlining the process so people can come here legally.
Not to get too controversial, but on social issues, just really quickly on abortion. What's your stance on abortion?
I am a female, and I value life, and I believe that it is sacred, that the ability to give life. That being said, I don't think the federal government has any part in telling a female what she can or can't do with her body.
So would you be in favor or oppose a constitutional amendment protecting life and conception?
No.
Gay marriage, same question. Sometimes say, would you be oppose or be in favor of a federal amendment, a constitutional amendment in favor of the traditional definition of marriage?
Can I finish something on the abortion real quick? I think it is so important, because this abortion issue is a big deal. It is so important to get into our communities and fix this problem. You can't legislate morality. You cannot legislate morality. And it's up to us in our own communities, instead of going out and picketing at something like Planned Parenthood, to figure out why these young women are getting pregnant in the first place. And we need to take that time, instead of shouting at each other and trying to change legislation, we need to take that time and help these young women. And this is a big deal to me, because these young women need help, and they need a healthy economy. And that's what people need to do with their time and their effort.
That's in fact, I'll skip ahead to cover that one a little bit. It's one of my pet issues is the illegitimate birth rate. I've often felt has been the root cause of the illegitimate rate of illegitimate births has been the root cause of a lot of our social ills, whether it's drug abuse or poverty, welfare system, abortion, so forth. What do you view as Congress's role?
Congress can't deal with that issue because it's a moral issue. And it's our job as representatives to work with our communities to become more aware of this. And it's our job as community members to start listening to each other and work together so that we create an environment where these young women and men have a sense of community and have an economy where they can grow. Congress can't do anything about this. It is up to people in the community.
Did you want to answer the game?
Yeah. Government has no role in deciding who can or can't get married.
Okay. And the war on drugs.
You cannot have a war on a concept. It's ineffective. What's happening on the border is illustrative of that.